Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. 24 hours after the Home Minister Amit Shah has announced that peace talks in Manipur, there are two new incidents of violence that have been reported. Insurgents have launched a fresh attack in Manipur's Jiribam district. They have fired several rounds from sophisticated weapons, which prompted a retaliation by the village volunteers. Since then, the authorities have been monitoring the situation in Jiribam. In another incident of violence, which has taken place in Imphal West, there was a bomb that exploded near a Food Corporation of India godown, which has caused significant damage to the nearby residences. No injuries have been reported so far, but residents have found bomb splinters inside their homes. Now, both these incidents come after Home Minister announced peace talks yesterday in Manipur. Meanwhile, the central government has launched bhandars in Manipur to offer essentials at reasonable prices to the people of Manipur. Now, in the midst of all this, the question arises is strong action being taken by the central government and the Home Ministry enough to quell the violence that has been erupting in the recent days and months in Manipur. It's also important to understand that while there is an internal conflict that takes place within the state, there are non-actors and actors from other parts of the world which border Manipur, who are taking full advantage of this uncertainty and volatility in the region to ensure that their vested interests are taken care of in the way of attacking India, in the way of bringing our borders into jeopardy and thereby the security of the country and its people as well. Let's start our conversation, and I begin my conversation with Major General G.G. Dwivedi, and trying to understand from you, General Dwivedi, about the current situation. It has only been about 24 hours since there was a fresh announcement by the Home Ministry, by the Union Home Minister himself, that there are going to be peace talks, there are going to be negotiations, there is going to be the border that is going to be sealed, there is also going to be stringent action taken against the violence and the violators of peace in Manipur. But at the same time, these attacks, these acts of violence continue to take place. Do you think there can be more that can be done by the central government?
Well, Megha, the point is Manipur is a very complex region, and we tend to take the events on the daily basis. What it requires a holistic look. In fact, Manipur has been on the boil for last about a year and a half, but the irony is, the tragedy is that all that central government and the state government has done is to manage the crisis and not actually go in for lasting solution. So that is the ground reality. And having commanded my division in Manipur, I can give you certain ground perceptions and also correlate them with the current environment. You see, current crisis started basically with the controversial judgment of the High Court that the Meiteis will also be included in the tribal status. And that what led to the tension and clashes in the beginning May, and in fact till date about 263 people have been killed and large number wounded, but without any solution. Today, if you see the situation on the ground, Manipur is fragmented. It is heading for balkanization because Meiteis and Kukis today are daggers drawn. They have fortified the areas. There are buffer zones which are being manned by the security forces, and what we are saying is a very momentarily peace, fragile peace, which is broken often with the instances. So therefore, all I can say is that Manipur has not been handled well. It's the political expediency that has overtaken the national interest just to keep the current government in place. What I recommend is that people have lost faith in the current dispensation, is the central government must step in. Right now, MH is controlling Manipur through remote control, through the unified headquarters. That is not going to work. Central government must come in, establish new structure. Army, which is just a bystander, must be given the responsibility to disarm the militant groups. They are actually heavily armed. There are about 5,000 arms are looted and arms are freely available. Therefore, as long as people are armed, there will be always clashes. The third point is we also need to look at the border. Especially the Myanmar border is very porous and they free flow arms from there. And my last point is the civil community must be brought into dialogue. Yesterday, yes, MHA has initiated the dialogue, but the dialogue is not to maintain status quo. The dialogue should be to change the ground situation, and that is to bring the communities, build in trust, bring in new structures, disarm the outfits, and end of it, start a new, fresh political process because there are no military solution to the political problems.
Okay. Megha. Okay, all right. Major General Dhruv Katoch, let's try to understand the situation and what is the extent of these militants that have been able to get their hands on the weapons. Over the past few months, there were a number of these reports that these militants, these people from the community ended up taking control of police stations, taking control of the troops that were posted over there and being able to take weapons from these individuals and these places. But now the situation is different because there is ample proof for us to understand that it is not just an internal conflict that the state government is at this point of time trying to find a solution to, trying to quell. It is, insurgency that is taking place. There is infiltration of weapons and arms that are also being done in considerable amount, because how do we otherwise justify that there are these drones that are military drones that are being used to drop bombs on specific targets?
Thank you, Megha. Megha, I've also been studying this Manipur problem for a very long time, and I've had the privilege of serving in those areas. But that, of course, was quite some time back. Now, one of the things is, I first want to talk about that border. Even when Myanmar was a stable country, it is very unstable now, but even when it was stable, that border was porous. And the militant outfits on both sides, there were the militants, the Chin militants who were on the Myanmar side, and our own militants from the northeast used to stay across the border. And that movement would take place. It was practically impossible for the Myanmar army to control it, though from the Indian side we had some level of control. Now that situation has got further exacerbated because from the Myanmar side, there is absolutely no control now. So that was one aspect. Number two, the problem, the suggestion keeps coming up, fence the border. Now you can fence the border, but then you have to guard. If you have to fence the border, you have to guard it. And if you want to guard a border, something like the Myanmar border, then you require 40 to 60,000 troops simply to guard it, if you want to guard it effectively. Now, I really don't know if that is a worthwhile solution or not. So they will have to look into things like guarding certain specific areas. The third thing is, when you're looking at Manipur, I think it has been mishandled right from 1947 onwards, from the time we got independence. We must remember Manipur was an independent king. They had a history of kings for over 2,000 years. And then they were treated very shabbily at independence. And now when you try to give them tribal status, we find the cookies, taking umbrage. I see no reason why anybody should take umbrage when the Maitis were given a tribal status. So there the foreign hand comes in. There are interested vested parties which are interested in creating disturbance in this area. It has got a great deal to do, one, with the drugs trade, because a large portion of those hills are being used for drug trafficking, or for cultivating poppy, and then the drug trafficking the centers are in Myanmar across the border. Then we have a large number of this. The civil war is raging in Myanmar. A large number of those groups have infiltrated into India. So we will find a large number of cookies or the Chin people from Myanmar who have settled down actually in those border areas. They are the illegal immigrants. And they are also creating trouble. And then the third factor which people don't talk about, but which I would like to mention, there is a direct involvement of certain Christian missionary groups from Western Europe and Northern America. And they also pump in their funds and their resources to keep the pot boiling here for their own vested interests.
Okay.
So getting all this act together, I think is going to be a Herculean task. But the first step is talks. Let the talks start. The second step, I think, is, at some point of time, the army will have to step in and say, okay, disarm the entire population. The way General Dwivedi has suggested, that will have to take place. But let us first start with talks.
Okay.
Let us at least get some semblance of order, then do the disarming, and then take it from there.
Okay.
Megha.
Okay. Major Mohammed Ali Shah, as has been known and mentioned time and again about the decades-old problem between the Meiteis and the Kukis, this dispute continues. But why do you think is there an incidents of increased insurgency and terrorism, whether it is about the flying rockets that were reported a week ago or launching of drone attacks? There were people that have been killed.
Okay, Megha, as the general officers, both of them said very correctly and accurately, they gave a very brilliant analysis on Manipur. Now, the very fact is, the Meiteis and the Kukis were brothers. They lived like best of friends. They never fought. They've never been a history of the Meiteis and the Kukis fighting in the past. Yes, there have been stories of the Nagas and the Kukis clashing, the Kukis within themselves clashing, the Meitei Pangals, that's the Meitei Muslims, that's the Manipuri Muslims, and the Meitei, that's the Meitei Hindus. They clashing, there have been history of that, but never of Meitei and Kuki. Now, as General Katoj also said, Manipur has been mishandled right from 1947 since then. And unfortunately, people did not even know where Manipur was on the map. A lot of people I know, they don't know. They were one day, somebody was arguing with me that Manipur is in Guwahati. I said, dude, how can a state be in a city? Please get your facts right. So, the very fact is we have actually, and we are also responsible to it to a large extent because we have not taken interest in the northeast part of India, which is the most beautiful part of the country, unfortunately. And unfortunately, we haven't taken much steps on that. Now, when the Home Minister announced that there's going to be peace talks will begin soon, and there's such thing, it was a good sign. And we see violence once again erupting. Jiribam is a place exactly in 19 years back, same time, though it was 28 September 2005. It was a place I stepped in on 28 September 2005 by helicopter when I was the ADC to the corps commander there, and General Dwivedi was the GOC of the 57 of the division over there, the Red Shield division. So Jiribam is that area where it was my first step as a service officer in the entire state of Manipur. So my attachment with Jiribam is that people did not know where Jiribam is all these years. Now suddenly Jiribam is well in the news. Now, where is the money coming from for high-tech equipment, weaponry, fights? We have to disarm. They are, at the moment as we speak right now, there are so many arms, illegal arms, floating around in Manipur from both the sides. They are underground factions. They are people who are not undergrounds, who are part of some social groups. They have picked up arms. They become armed groups now. So how do we disarm them? When we tie the hands of the army, of the armed forces behind the backs, we give them power, we give them responsibility, all right, but we don't give them authority. There's no authority. Assam Rifles, I had the honor to serve with the Assam Rifles, very, very good fighting force. Assam Rifles, 2 battalions, they finished their tenure. They were sent to up north to Jammu Kashmir. My own battalion where I have served, they were already there. They've been there for 3 years in Jammu Kashmir. And so it's a turnover. So now the very fact is how do we control it? It's such a mess right now. I strongly suggest urgently, peace talks should happen urgently, it should not be announced. It should happen. Okay. That should be the first priority. Yeah. And lastly, I'd like to conclude by saying the IB, Information Broadcasting, the Intelligence Bureau should identify certain names which are not Meitei, not Kuki, and they should present those names who are in touch with with the ground reality, in touch with both the communities, and who have certain amount of influence.
Yeah.
They can
okay. And like I said, this has been a continuous process, because when there was violence that was more frequent and more prominent in the past months, again the Home Ministry had come out, and Union Home Minister spoke himself and made a visit over there and spoke about how there have to be peace talks. There are these commissions that were built, committees that were formed, and again people of stature with gravitas to be able to influence the people and show them the right path were brought in, were roped in, but to limited success. Nirmal Kaur, who's the former IPS, served as DGP Jharkhand. Where do we, at this point of time, focus on to find a lasting solution? And more importantly, why have the armed forces role been limited, and they have been constrained so as to bring about peace and fight these terror activities that continue unabated in Manipur?
The situation is very complicated. It is a result of 75 years of neglect. Even in the earlier 60s sometime, the Northeast was somehow seen to be a Christian missionary playground. The Christian missionaries can come and do anything. There was this Alvin Warrior who was a missionary who was given some kind of an interlocutor on Northeast. I don't know who appointed him, maybe the then Congress government. And he was seen to be a very important figure, God knows why. And they signed an agreement that no saints, no sadhus, no Hindu preachers can visit Northeast. So a large part of Manipur and these Tripura, these places are very Hindu, Shaivite people. They worship Krishna, they celebrate Janmashtami. Though they were somehow toned down so much, and with the Christian missionary activity going on and converting people, the problem is that 90%, Meithis are much larger in number, but they have only 10% of the land in place. They are about 90% in number. And similarly, Kukis were about 10% in numbers, and they have all the hills, every land, 90%. Now it's very funny that if a Kuki wants, he can buy land in Maithi area. But if a Maithi wants, the hills are reserved for Kukis. He cannot buy land there. And this privilege, nobody can go there. There was a shrine of Maithis on the hills, and they blew off, they sabotaged the bridge which leads to their shrine. This is like our Vaishno Devi shrine, and the road to that being blown off by the Kukis, because they did not want any Maithis coming there, mainly because they are doing what they please. It's their fiefdom, they are growing poppy, they are indulging in drug trade, and the bunkers you see there, some bunkers have been discovered, which are like, which will put the American bunkers in Afghanistan to shame. Pakka bunkers, they have fortified themselves, they are prepared for a fight, a civil war, to have a siege for a long time, they can resist it. So, and another thing is that because they were smaller, they were 10% in number, and Meithis were much larger, and they wanted supremacy. Earlier they would not marry the Chin Kukis from Burma. Then they changed some marital laws, and then they said, no, any Kuki, racially they were pretty much the same. But they said, now you can marry Chin Kukis also. Because the border is so porous, the Chin Kukis are coming by, it's a pretense. Either they come for marriage, for some reason they are coming. Illegal immigration is so much, and they are trying to change the demography. So this changing demography, wherein more and more illegal immigrants are coming to raise the number of Kukis. And you read, you see, even in the very old 1875 and all anthropologists, sociologists, they've written that Kukis are a very, very militant race. They are very militant, and their general traits of the tribe are given. And Meithis are again a tribe because they worship Shiv. They're Shaivites, most of them, I think. That is why they think they cannot be a tribe. They were given scheduled caste status, which itself was very wrong. And when the High Court decided and tried to give them the scheduled tribe status, all hell broke loose. The Kukis came out and, they raped women, mind you, the All Hill Tribal Union, Student Union March, the whole problem was started by the Kukis. Where there's Chandrachura, Chandrapur and all these bordering places, where the houses were looted, burnt, women were raped, the Maithi women. It started like that. And after that, they in their game of one-upmanship, they made some video and, made it public on the eve of the parliament session. And they made the problem international. Look at their contacts. They took it to the European Parliament.
Okay, but then you think, at this point in time, the militancy situation, Major Dwivedi, coming back to you about, there are two aspects of it. We discussed this time and again as well. One is the internal conflict and the other one is terrorism, but they are interlinked. Now, the internal conflict, where there are these elements, countries that have animosity against India, using this to their advantage to spread violence, to spread insurgency, and pushing drug trafficking, arms trafficking. Now, how can the government of India find a solution that is going to be accepted by both the tribes, the Kukis and the Métis, but at the same time also quell terrorism that is erupting. If there is action that is taken against militants, and as Nirmal Kaul was pointing out, that there are a number of Kukis that have turned themselves into militants, and if a decision is taken to stop this insurgency and stop the militancy, it directly then is targeting the Kukis.
Well, Megha, first and foremost, I wish to state very categorically that currently the problem is well beyond the Kuki and Meitei conflict. It's a national security issue and must be addressed at the highest priority. Second, most people are not aware of the complexity of Manipur. In fact, Kukis and Meiteis have been best of friends. Kukis are brought in basically to bring in some kind of a shield against the Nagas. The problem was always between Nagas and Meiteis and never Kukis. And in fact, 2005, the agreement of suspension of operation against the Kukis was drafted at my headquarters. Kuki militants were actually subdued. It was the Meitei militant, UNLF, PLA, KVK, PREPOC. They were actually the ones which are most violent and militant. The whole issue started basically as an appeasement for the Meiteis to also have tribal status, which I don't think this was the right time, because Meiteis are actually dominant. They are 54%. They have all the important positions. They are very prosperous people. At this time, I don't think this issue should have been brought. We should have addressed the larger issue, the development of Northeast and Manipur, rather than going into the reservation issue.
Okay.
Now, at this point, just 2 points. The first and foremost, yes, I totally agree. I would rather support that we need to bring two communities together, and because they don't have history of violence, it will not be very difficult. Secondly, yes, it's a security issue because the drug peddling is there, gun running is there, the foreign powers are involved. Bangladesh today is very volatile, and Myanmar. We need to address the issue because Chinese shadow also growing large. All I would say is that we need to take care of the national issue. No more conflict or inner conflict, and it has to be tackled at the highest level. The government must step in, stop this violence, disarm, and for that the army has to step in because there's no alternative, because the state police is polarized, not in position to actually handle the situation, and Rajesh Singh, the DGP himself, said that local police is not very, very effective.
Okay.
And the remote control must stop, MHA must stop the remote control, and the central government must step in.
Okay. Major General Dhruv Katoch, that you think President's rule is going to solve all problems?
No, Megha. I don't think President's rule will solve the problem, but we do require a very heavy security presence there, and the forces must be allowed to act. But I disagree with General Dwivedi when as far as the tribal status is concerned. This tribal status should have been given to them right from 1947 onwards. And now, as the High Court has given it, I see no reason for anybody else to object. The center should ensure its implementation, and the Kukis should be sensitized to it, that there are some things which are non-negotiable. This is one of them. Also, please look into the finances. Where is the money coming from? Look into the activities of the church where the finances are moving in, especially through Mizoram and through Myanmar. And of course, there is the question of control of the borders. There will be a requirement of the security, enhancing the security presence. But imposing President's rule, I don't think is the answer as of now.
Okay.
Megha.
Okay. Major Mohammed Ali Shah, so what's the road ahead over here when there is, restriction to the army to take control and quell the violence, the spread of terrorism? There is state machinery and the police forces that are not up to the mark and being able to actually find a solution. And do we wait for the situation to calm down and allow for this conflict, internal as well as the terrorist threat that we are facing, to continue indefinitely? What's the solution?
Okay, Megha, I think General Dwivedi has, because since he had commanded a division over there, I think he gave a brilliant analysis, and I really genuinely learned watching him, in fact. So now, when we say that, I also say that, the thing is to give the army full powers. There was Armed Forces Special Power Act over there, and in some districts it was moved. It's very controversial. Yes, we cannot remove the entire Armed Forces Special Power Act. We can make amendments to it, and most certainly I think it should be there. Now, secondly, any force, be it the police force, be it the Assam Rifles, be it BSF, CRPF, Army, any force. Do our viewers know the kind of training that involves, the rigorous training for any force that is involved in training our soldiers, our troops, be it police also. So it's rigorous. Everyone is good, everyone is competent. The very fact is, सबको बंदूक चलानी आती है. The very fact is, how politicized are you and order कहाँ से क्या आ रहा है? It's as simple as that. Whose orders are you going to obey? So the very fact is, when you give the force full power, go ahead, operate. Army can clean the mess, Megha, within 4 days. Within 4 days.
Yeah, but then there are political compulsions because of which such a step has not been taken up until now. Otherwise, what's the resistance that the central government at current time is facing, that it has still not been able to announce that there has to be the army that needs to take control. Nirmal Kaur, how long would it take for the government of India and the Home Ministry to actually gauge the situation and the problems that can become huge if not catered to, if not controlled now? Because when we see a porous border, and it's only been just recently, months ago, that there have been fences that have been put up in that entire stretch, I think 480 kilometers of stretch. How do we, but that's about it. Why is the government of India scared to take strong action?
The thing is, the government of India and the local administrative machinery, at one point it was said that the Meiteis are very influential and powerful and prosperous. I beg to differ in the sense that the scheduled tribe status, there are many cookie officers. In fact, the previous DG, this DG has been brought in, the present DG Rajiv Kumar, from some other cadre, Tripura or some other cadre, because the local DG who was there before this, he was an IPS officer from the cookie community. And his brother, and so many people from the cookie community were there in the top post. His own brother was an IPS officer, a very senior IPS officer. So many people from the cookie community were actually handling. Government may have an agenda, the local government also and the central government also, but the implementation as of the policies, of the programs, has to be done by the local administration. So where is the delivery? Delivery has to be done by the civil services, the IPS, the state civil services, the police force.
Yeah,
that is not being done.
It's not being done, and therefore the question arises: should army take control under the orders of the Home Ministry? But that's not happening either. So do we just keep waiting and allow for more and more people to be killed and destruction of property?
Army functions very well when there is a very well-defined dushman. Where is the well-defined dushman here? They are civilians. Everyone's trained to, run guns. Everyone's trained to shoot guns. Everyone's trained to kill. Everyone's fired to kill or to take revenge. So the army cannot be effective in such a situation. Where they cannot clearly demarcate the enemy, or here's a terrorist, here's a civilian, here's a citizen, here's a terrorist.
Yeah, which will also once again flare the problem even more. It could become more volatile, and understandably the resistance that is being seen from the Manipuris in the government then taking charge and bringing forth these very strong actions, and therefore the reservation that is coming in from the Home Ministry to do the same thing. All right, on that note, I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and thanks for watching NewsX.
Today we're going to be talking about relationships.